What happens when Hollywood's golden girl walks into a morning show and instead finds herself in a TV firing squad? Get ready to relive the moment Jennifer Lawrence realizes her casual appearance on The View was, in fact, a high-stakes ambush. Forget a disastrous junket. This was an all-out interrogation, leaving both the audience and Lawrence utterly breathless. But before we get into the thick of this shocking showdown, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment down below. You won't want to miss any part of how one of the world's biggest stars navigated the daytime TV panel's most notorious crew. The energy in the studio was absolutely palpable when Jennifer Lawrence entered the building. All smiles, she waved to a roaring crowd, looking like the exact approachable movie star legend we've all grown to love. Little did the audience know, however, that a trap was being set. The cheerful atmosphere of a film promo quickly became a scripted nightmare, with a panel hiding an agenda designed to go viral. But just how venomous was this ambush? You're about to find out. The first question changed everything. Joy Behar didn't bother with the typical Hollywood fluff. Leaning forward, arms crossed, she immediately went straight for the jugular. "Jennifer, welcome back. We're glad you're here," she started, but her voice was as cold as ice. "Before we dive into the movie, we want to talk about something that's really been on our minds." The happy demeanor instantly disappeared from Lawrence's face. A look of cautious confusion flashed across her features. "Oh, okay. What's that?" she asked, a nervous edge to her voice as the temperature in the room dropped significantly. The pleasantries were over, and what came next caught everyone off guard. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, her expression as stony as it could be. "Jennifer, you've been in the business for over a decade now," she said. "But there's been growing conversation that maybe your characters in franchises like The Hunger Games may actually be a step backwards for women, at least in terms of what's seen as feminist roles." The studio held its breath. Behind the camera, Lawrence's publicist was visibly losing their mind. This wasn't on the pre-approved list of questions. Jennifer looked bewildered, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I'm sorry, what? They're set women back? I don't even know what you mean by that." She was seeking clarity, but the panel wasn't done yet. Sunny Hostin jumped into the fray, her tone immediately shifting into that of an interrogator. "What we're suggesting, Jennifer, is that your roles consistently push the cool girl trope. You're presented as this independent, strong woman, but upon closer examination, all of these women are still entirely defined by their relationships with men." Was this a valid criticism or a deliberate attack? Stick around because Jennifer Lawrence isn't going to take this lying down. Sunny proceeded to cite another fictional female figure. Take Katniss Everdeen, for example. She argued. She spends almost the entirety of the series being forced into impossible choices with two boys fighting over her all while saving the world. The instantaneous shift in Jennifer Lawrence's body language, the stiffening of her posture, the wave of genuine disbelief that swept over her face, showed that she had felt the bite. "Are you trying to tell me," she retorted, her voice sharpening into a commanding tone, "that Katniss Everdeen, who leads a rebellion and sacrifices everything for her people, is anti-feminist because she feels things? Because she's human?" The studio fell into a deathly silence, but the panel was only just heating up. You have yet to hear what Joy Behar had to say on the matter. With no hesitation, Joy went deeper. "But that's the exact point, Jennifer. You've created this template where young girls have to believe that strength can only be manifested in a way that will make her romantically desirable to a man. It's just the male gaze wearing warrior's clothing." This statement seemed to carry the weight of 1,000,000 pounds. Jennifer Lawrence felt a flush crawl up her face and made a concerted effort not to let her professionalism crumble. "I did not create any of this," she retorted heatedly. "I played characters written by female authors whom so many women felt represented by on the big screen for the first time ever." And still the questioning did not end. "I'd just like to add one thing." Sarah Haynes, who had been watching from the side, said, "With the platform you have, do you really think you have a responsibility to pick roles that will really empower women and not just appear to?" She looked directly at Jennifer. "Even in your comedic movies, you are always just the clumsy girlfriend who always has to be rescued." Lawrence tightened her grip on the arms of the couch. "Clumsy and relatable? What? Human and imperfect?" she said with rising frustration. "I apologize if the characters I portray are not indestructible feminist heroes who have never stumbled, but the reality is that is no longer representation of what a woman is." The studio floor now felt like a volcano. This is where Whoopi took the lead to blow. Sensing the tension escalate, Whoopi Goldberg decided to take it to another level. "Jennifer, I believe the point is your feminism seems performative. You stand for equality yet portray stereotypical and outdated women. I believe you've become the poster child of fake feminism in Hollywood." The studio lost all of its air. Lawrence stared in utter astonishment. "Fake feminism? Are you serious right now?" she stammered. "I've spent my entire career fighting for equal pay and equal representation in the workplace. I've invested in that on multiple levels, and you're telling me that that's fake?" The door was closed, and it was time for Jennifer to exit. You'll never believe how she handled the end of the interview. Joy Behar, leaning back with a smug expression on her face, said with a cool tone, "I have to say, Jennifer, actions do speak louder than words, and on-screen choices have certainly validated what it is that women are encouraged to do, to be likable and palatable for men, and you have become quite rich playing that game." Jennifer's voice broke, and she began to cry as she responded in utter disbelief of what she was listening to. "You know what? This is ridiculous. I came on here to talk about the film I have made and the film I am proud of, not beam-bushed with a personal character assassination about me and my whole career." This panel, however, seemed completely unperturbed and rather enjoying the situation. However, wait until you see how they justified this brutal onslaught. Both hosts exchanged a look of amusement. They seemed to be absolutely reveling in making Jennifer squirm, and Sunny Hostin moved in with a low prosecutorial tone in her voice. "This is not an assassination, it's accountability. You have a generation of women who believe that this persona you project influences them. And there are many of us that believe it influences them in a negative way." Suddenly, there was the noise of a chair scraping loudly against the floor as Jennifer stood up sharply in her tall height and peered down at the panel. "Negatively? I inspire millions of young women to be strong, to fight for what they believe in, and to always stand up for themselves, and you claim it's negatively impacting women that I've made these characters real and not a perfect doll?" The audience went silent as Jennifer made her statement. Then with obvious and extreme rage, she said, "I want you to tell me that your characters have never felt the negative impact of portraying realistic women, as in this film and in all the others that you've had me in." Joy Behar, seeing her upset, then pressed forward with more of an attack. "The problem, Jennifer, is you have deceived yourself to believe that you are some feminist icon, but you have simply been very well paid to promote patriarchal standards that further empower them and disempower women. You are no revolutionist." Joy paused and then said with emphasis, "You are a collaborator." The words collaborated hung heavy and toxic in the room. The color on Lawrence's face went from pale to crimson. How could she let this happen on air, a traitor to women everywhere? The studio lights seemed to flash like blinding lasers and hit an absolute breaking point, and yet Jennifer was not done. "A collaborator?" She said, her breath shallow as she stared with utter hatred in her eyes at the panel, her whisper low and dangerous. The room could not have been more tense. "Do you think that this is the end of the clash?" No, what Jennifer did next is what ensured that this episode would forever go down as the most dramatic episode of The View. Read on for Jennifer's final response. "You just called me a feminist accomplice of the patriarchy? On network television?" Jennifer's voice dropped to a near whisper, her voice wavering between disbelief and sheer adrenaline. Whoopi Goldberg did not flinch. Her frame seemed to stretch forward, an unblinking, predatory gaze that was about to draw blood. "If the stiletto fits, Jennifer, you've made a career out of characters who are presented as outwardly powerful but internally crave the approval of men. That isn't feminism, it's just the patriarchy dressed in new threads and packaged with a clever marketing campaign." The studio held its breath. This had escalated far beyond a friendly interview and was now a full-on public character assassination, but Jennifer was ready to clap back. The audience in the studio sat in bewildered silence, a few individuals covering their mouths in astonishment. Outside of the immediate view, Lawrence's publicist was signaling desperately to take a commercial break, but the producers kept the cameras rolling. This was television history in the making. "Do you want to talk about the patriarchy?" Jennifer's voice started to rise and her carefully crafted image began to crack. "Let's talk about 4 women sitting around a table, verbally dismantling the life's work of a young woman, solely to justify their own relevance. Let's talk about how you've used this program as a bully pulpit to disguise your own social justice agenda as genuine concern." Her counterattack was pointed, but Joy Behar was more than ready for the verbal pummeling. A sharp, cruel smile spread across Joy's face. "Oh, suddenly we're the bullies, Jennifer. I have heard this a million times before. You've made hundreds of millions of dollars for portraying fictitious characters while real women fight for tangible rights. Yet you have the audacity to borrow the language of feminism for ticket sales. Now you're throwing a tantrum because someone finally called you out." Before Jennifer could defend herself, Sarah Haynes joined the fray with a venomous bite. Jennifer, it is the hypocrisy that is problematic. You stand on stages at award ceremonies championing female empowerment. Then your characters are defined by their quest to capture a man's attention, all within the same universe. You cannot have it both ways. The air crackled with tension as Jennifer was cornered, her response raw and unfiltered. Yes, Sarah, you're absolutely right. I cannot have it both ways. I cannot exist as a flawed, imperfect human being and still be your perfect, empty, feminist icon at the same time. According to you, I have two choices. I can be a warrior or I can be a woman, but I'm not allowed to be both. Sunny Huston adjusted her notes with a dramatic flourish, preparing for her final, legalistic strike. That, Jennifer, she said with chilling coldness, is exactly the issue. Will this mark the end of Jennifer Lawrence's career, or has she finally fought back? The concluding move in this power struggle is just seconds away. You've enabled a false choice for a whole generation, Sunny said, her voice filled with finality. You've told young girls they could be strong, but only if they are sexy enough. They could be relatable, but only if they appeal to men. That is not empowerment, Jennifer. That is just feminism with a new bow on it. That is the patriarchy. Lawrence's face flinched at the accusation, like she was struck by a physical blow, her face contorting with raw, white-hot rage as she shot up from her seat, so violently that the chair flipped backward into the studio backdrop with a resounding crash. Are you listening to yourself? This is insane. I have spent my entire career embodying complicated, flawed human beings, and now I'm telling that I'm an enemy of women? Lawrence shouted into the mic, her voice booming and cracking as it echoed through the rafters. The studio was a tinderbox, but Joy Behar was about to light the match. Joy saw she was breaking through and went for the jugular. I think you're finally being forced to take a hard look at yourself and see that your entire career is based on a fabrication, Jennifer. A total fabrication. You convinced yourself you were a feminist symbol, but in reality, you are just a pretty face that has spent years peddling a dangerous fantasy for men and pretending that it is somehow about women. Behar stated with a deadpan expression as a chorus of audible gasps rippled through the studio. The crew members, even off stage, couldn't help but shake their heads at the sheer brutality of the insult. Lawrence's face turned through a rapid spectrum of shock, then hurt, then, finally, a terrifying cold rage. The America's sweetheart persona completely dissolved, leaving only the woman who has had enough. Pretty face-selling male fantasies? Lawrence's voice rose, reaching the very back row of the audience. Are you even hearing yourselves? You're sitting here, live on national television, reducing me to my looks and then lecturing me on feminism. Do you not understand how utterly contradictory that is? Whoopi Goldberg joined in and then one-upped the insult. Well, the irony is, Jennifer, that you're playing the victim and are victimizing young girls by offering them watered-down feminist crap that has the patriarchy's stamp of approval because it won't threaten their man. This was the ultimate insult. But what Jennifer had to say next would shatter the internet. Lawrence's body shook, her voice cracking from the emotion she was feeling. Safe for the patriarchy? Are you hearing yourself? Katniss Everdeen, who literally dismantles a totalitarian government and who has sacrificed everything to save her people, who is the most powerful person in that world, is telling young girls it's safe for her to have feelings. Sarah Haynes re-entered the conversation with a drippingly patronizing voice. But Jennifer, don't you get it? The fact that there is still this love triangle going on in the middle of the entire thing totally undermines the message it is sending to young girls. It is telling them that even when they're saving the world, it is still about their love lives that they should care about. The trap was now sprung. And how would one of the most famous women in the world escape a 4-on-1 televised ambush? You will not believe the last words that end this epic showdown. The room went eerily silent as Lawrence's Hollywood persona didn't just crack, it completely shattered. Do you know what's actually making young girls think the most important thing about them is their romantic relationships? She seethed, her voice barely above a whisper. This show where 4 women spend all morning tearing other women down instead of uplifting them. You've weaponized feminism, turned it into something to destroy, not something to build with. Joy Behar's eyes practically twinkled with malicious glee. Jennifer was exactly where she wanted her. Emotional, defensive, a total mess on live TV. So now we're the fake feminists? Joy sneered. Jennifer, we have been in the front lines of women's rights since long before you were born. We earned our place at this table through suffering and sacrifice, not by playing dress-up in big-budget films. That was the ultimate dismissal. And what Jennifer did next sent the producers scrambling for the cut button. Lawrence's face flushed a deep, burning crimson, and she pointed a shaking finger directly at the panel. Earned your place? You earned your place through gossip and gatekeeping. You have turned feminism into a blood sport, where you are the self-appointed arbiters of who is pure enough to join your club. Recognizing Lawrence was teetering on the brink of a breakdown, Sunny Hostin moved in to seal the deal. Jennifer, you are having an emotional outburst on national television, she said with a tone of cool condescension, which frankly is all the proof we need that you can't handle legitimate criticism without crumbling. Maybe that's because on some level you know we're right. An awful tense silence filled the studio. The camera zoomed in, capturing the raw, unadulterated pain etched on Lawrence's face. Emotional outburst? Lawrence choked out, her voice vibrating with years of pent-up fury. You ambush me. You call me a traitor to my gender. You tell me that my entire career is built on a lie, and the second I dare to defend myself, I'm mentally unstable? This is exactly why women are afraid to speak out, because of people like you. But the panel was still hungry. They could taste blood, and they were desperate for that soundbite that would dominate the headlines for weeks to come. Whoopi Goldberg leaned back with a satisfied smirk, watching the implosion. Jennifer, you keep saying you're defending yourself, Whoopi said calmly. But what you're actually doing is showing the world that you can't take the truth. You've built an identity around being America's sweetheart, and the minute someone starts to poke holes in that, you just fall apart. The room had reached its breaking point, but you won't believe what happened next. The final moment that forever changed the face of daytime television. Her knuckles were white, and she was gripping her fists so tightly that her whole body shook. The truth? She asked, her voice resonating with a terrifying kind of fervor. You want to talk about the truth? The truth is that you four have turned this into a toxic wasteland. You eat other women for sport, and you preach feminist ideals while practicing the most vicious kind of internalized misogyny. Joy Behar let out a laugh that was shrill, echoing through the rafters with a spiteful edge. Oh, spare us. Do not lecture us about misogyny when you've made a career playing cool girl who isn't like other girls and has perpetuated every problematic trope in the book while convincing yourself you're a revolutionary. The room felt so venomous that even the crew members were starting to look for the door. But the panel wasn't stopping. They were going for the jugular. The audience members in their seats began shifting. Lawrence's publicist stopped signaling for a break and started frantic, furtive calls to someone to please stop this before it got any worse. Sarah Haynes saw an opening she clearly believed would be the kill shot. Jennifer, she said softly, I think you are finally realizing that everything you believed you were is just a lie. You aren't a feminist icon. You are simply a product of the male gaze that has been masterfully marketed as empowerment. Lawrence's voice dropped into a whisper, the unnervingly calm one that comes right before a hurricane. You know what, Sarah? You are absolutely right. I am a product. I'm a product of an industry that told me I had to be perfect and likable and grateful for every tiny crumb I received. And sadly, the truth is that right now I'm being lectured by 4 women who should understand that struggle better than anyone. She had them cornered for a brief second, but Sunny Hostin stepped in with the legalistic jab to the heart. But that's exactly the problem, Jennifer. Hostin leaned in, predatory. You chose to embody that in exchange for popularity. You've become the ultimate Hollywood feminist. Just feminist enough for a brand, but never quite feminist enough to truly bother men. For just a moment, it looked like Jennifer was about to break. The accusation had clearly struck a nerve, and tears threatened to well up in her eyes. But then something shifted within her. The pain evaporated and was replaced with a gaze of pure, unfiltered black rage. You know what actually bothers men? Lawrence's voice suddenly boomed through the room. Women who tear each other down in public. Women who use their power to destroy another woman's career and reputation because they've become so bitter and jealous that they can't stand to see anyone else win. The gloves were off and all civility was gone. You'll never guess what Jennifer screamed back at the panel right before the feed went black. The studio fell into a deathly, chilling silence. For a beat, the whole panel was left speechless by the sheer raw honesty and bluntness of Jennifer's comeback. But Joy Behar's reaction was swift. Her face contorted into an expression of absolute malice. Jealous? Jennifer, we are not jealous of you. We are disappointed in you. We're disappointed that someone in your position didn't use their power for good to move women forward, and instead chose to drag them back. You had the opportunity to be a good role model. You chose to be a bad one. The words were deeply personal, but Jennifer wasn't done turning the mirror back on them yet. You won't believe what happened next. Every molecule in Lawrence's body was quivering with adrenaline, and her voice was raised so loud, the front row physically flinched in their seats. Bad role model? You want to know what a bad role model is? A bad role model is for women who are so invested in dragging everyone else down that they don't even know what it means to lift women up. You have weaponized feminism into nothing more than a wrecking ball for female destruction. Whoopi Goldberg wouldn't allow the guest to be the last word spoken, and intensified the room even more. Jennifer, you're sitting here melting down in front of the nation, but you think that you're the victim? This is exactly what the rest of the world thinks about women in Hollywood. The sarcasm was palpable. She was in the process of being verbally annihilated for an emotional reaction to a live dissection of her career on national television. Her face went through a range of emotions, from disbelief and pain to pure, icy contempt. What the rest of the world thinks about women in Hollywood. This show. This is exactly why people think that. You four incredibly powerful women, sitting at this desk, using your power to tear apart one woman, you've become everything that you say you stand against, and you are too blinded by self-righteousness to see it. Sarah Haynes, in a tone so patronizing it could make your teeth hurt, delivered the next blow. Jennifer, it's time to get back to reality. Your whole career is based on lies. You've tricked yourself into believing that you're some type of icon, but the truth is you're just another pretty face peddling a sanitized version of girl power. Jennifer stood there, her chest heaving as the weight of the betrayal crashed down around her. She walked right into a trap she didn't see coming. She came to the View expecting a promotion, but she walked into a murder of her career. The cameras continued to roll, and Jennifer Lawrence was about to make a choice that would cement her image as either a pariah or a hero to women everywhere. Has Lawrence's career been dealt its death blow, or will she unleash a final attack that finally shuts down the panel? The conclusion of the show's most explosive interview yet is just seconds away. These people had systematically deconstructed everything that made Jennifer Lawrence, her work, her values, and her very self, all with that smug, self-righteous smile glued to their faces. They expected her to crack. They expected her to run out of the studio in tears. But then, that little victim they thought they'd backed into a corner began to grow. Lawrence's shoulders straightened. Her back stiffened against their judgmental glares. Then, with a quick turn that caught everyone off guard, Lawrence turned her back on her hosts and locked eyes with the camera, and by extension, the millions of silent, stunned viewers watching at home. "You know what? I'm done," she said, her voice a low, steady hum that cut through the studio air. "I'm done with this show. I'm done with this conversation. And I am officially done with women who think attacking other women somehow makes them a more profound feminist." The panelists tried to jump back in, but Jennifer wasn't done. Jennifer was only just getting started. She turned back to the four hosts, her energy filling the stage, owning the room with a fierceness that made them shrink a little in their chairs. "You four have spent the last 30 minutes trying to prove to these viewers that I'm a traitor to my sex," she said, her voice carrying an undeniable weight. "I see nothing but traitors here, who have chosen to use a massive platform for destruction rather than construction, and to tear down rather than lift up." Joy Behar started to speak, but Jennifer held up a hand, silencing her immediately. "No, it has been your turn. You've had your time to assault, belittle, and preach. It is now my turn." The studio was utterly silent as Jennifer Lawrence gave a masterclass in standing your ground. "I have spent my career bringing to life complex, deeply flawed, utterly human female characters," she continued. "Characters who are both strong and weak, independent and dependent. They are real women. Not only are they not one-dimensional soldiers or empty symbols, they are entirely human creatures, and as complicated as they are as messy and complicated as all women are. And I have to say, I am damn proud of that," she continued. "I am proud that these women have resonated with millions of girls. Because while you've been sitting here, judging and policing, these fictional women have actually gone out into the world and taught them to be brave and taught them that nobody gets to tell them who they are." The panel of hosts could only stare. Not only had the tables turned, they'd been completely dismantled and reassembled with Jennifer Lawrence as the master builder. "You want to know what is harmful to women?" Lawrence asked. "This notion that we have to perform and not be flawed or make mistakes. This notion that if you mess up, you are the worst woman alive. This culture of tearing down other women is the worst. You've made this show an indictment against women." With a flourish of nonchalance, Lawrence sauntered over to the side table, picked up her water bottle, and took a long, slow sip. The silence in the studio grew so thick you could almost cut it with a knife, stretching until it was almost unbearable for the four women sitting behind the desk. As she finally put the bottle down, Jennifer Lawrence uttered the words that would be immortalized on every social media platform and in the annals of female empowerment for the next decade. This is how Jennifer Lawrence closed the door on The View.